with one lane closed due to a broken-down vehicle. In West Berkshire, a broken-down vehicle on the M4 westbound near Junction 12 causes one lane closure. Hampshire's M27 eastbound entry slip at Junction 5 faces a traffic incident, closing one lane. And on the trains, Avanti West Coast services between Birmingham New Street and Wolverhampton face delays. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
Now, the National Memorial to Queen Elizabeth II will include a new bridge in St James's Park, designed by Norman Foster.
Yes, the translucent bridge will be inspired by the tiara the Queen wore on her wedding day.
But let's get more now from St James's Park with our royal correspondent, Cameron Walker. Cameron, what's the memorial going to be like?
Good afternoon, Tom and Emily. Yes, the wait is finally over. We have the final design from the renowned architect Lord Foster, who famously once criticised the King for his views on architecture. But of course, today it's all about honouring Queen Elizabeth II and her legacy. On that theme, at Marlborough Gate, which is the big gate you see behind me, which overlooks the Mall, that's going to be renamed Queen Elizabeth II Place. And there is, according to the artist impression, going to be a big statue of Queen Elizabeth II riding a horse overlooking the Mall. Of course, incredibly poignant because she had a deep love of all things equine. Incredibly poignant, of course, as well, significant love between Prince Philip and the late Queen. It's going to apparently, according to the architect, or hinted by the architect, light up at night as well, which is meant to symbolise all the diamonds that were part of that tiara. And the Queen famously also gave it to her granddaughter, loaned it to her granddaughter, Princess Beatrice, for her wedding in 2020. And then we come to the final part of St James's Park's Queen Elizabeth II's memorial, and that is going to be right here at the other end of the park, overlooking Birdcage Walk, going to be renamed Prince Philip Gates, because a new statue of Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip is going to be erected at the other side of St James's Park. It's meant to be them, according to the artist's impressions, in their younger years.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good morning. It's Thursday, the 7th of August. It's 9:30 live across the UK. Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
Good morning. Well, restoring order at the border, the government has detained the first illegal Channel migrants under the new so-called one-in, one-out deal with France.
Well, that scheme is now underway. We believe that it's a very modest number that have been detained by the government so far, and this against the fact that 400 migrants have crossed over yesterday and this morning.
And Cowboy Cosmetics, the government announces its intention to crack down on rogue beauty operators to protect people from dangerously botched butt lifts, Botox and fillers.
And breaking news, as a Kremlin aide confirms Russian leader Vladimir Putin will meet US President Donald Trump in person next week to discuss ending the war in Ukraine.
Big story. And solar scourge, a Northamptonshire village outraged at the prospect of a new solar panel farm, with the local MP Sarah Ball leading calls to scrap the very idea.
You are going to be taking agricultural fields out of use and replacing it with solar panels when there are warehouses, there are car parking spaces and other dead spaces you can use. That is the right place, not here.
And sick of Britain? Well, 1 in 5 doctors are fed up with poor working conditions and are chasing better pay abroad. Do we have a medical crisis, or do we just need to treat our GPs better?
And HMRC staff attended a taxpayer-funded seminar on the guilt of being British during work hours. Can you believe it? It's predictably sparked outrage online. Not just online, it's just outrage full stop. How dare they?
No. Well, what has it come to when our institutions are actively teaching their employees to not like our country?
Can the Treasury just get the economy moving?
That's why they don't answer the phone, Andrew.
Exactly. They're too busy being told all about colonialism. outrageous. Well, this is Britain's Newsroom, live across the UK. I'm Andrew, and that's Miriam Cates.
And our main news this morning, the Home Office says the first detentions of illegal Channel migrants have now taken place, which follows, of course, that deal reached yesterday between UK and France, which came into force 2 days ago.
The same deal, which is part of Labour's plan to so-called smash the gangs, but GB News sources are warning more migrant boats are already heading towards British shores this morning.
Well, the Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, has been speaking about these first migrants being detained. Let's take a listen.
Has now begun, and the first migrants who arrived on small boat are now in detention. That is the first step to removing them to France, because no one should be making this journey in the first place, and that's why this is now starting the process to return people and to undermine this vile trade in people.
You won't say how many have been detained, though. There could be just 2 people detained yesterday. Don't the public have a right to know?
Well, we will provide regular updates for the public at every stage. That's why I'm confirming today that the pilot has now started, and the first migrants who arrived on small boat are now in detention. The transfers to immigration removal centres are underway as we speak, so we won't provide operational details at this point that criminal gangs can simply use and exploit. But no one should be in any doubt. Anyone who arrives from now on is eligible for immediate detention and return, and this pilot will now build, because we are determined that no one should be making this journey, and this is a vile trade in people.
You say return immediately, but your colleagues have admitted the scheme will face legal challenges and possible delays. How soon will the people that have been detained yesterday be deported, and could this appeals process last weeks or months?
Well, the pilot has now begun, so the first migrants who've arrived on the small boats are now in detention. We will then swiftly make the referrals to France, and that process will now start to be able to return people to France. It's the beginning of the pilot, and it will build as well over time, but we're also clear that France is a safe country, so we will robustly defend against any legal challenge that people try, and we do expect for people to start being returned in a matter of weeks.
Another part of your brief, protests in hotels. More protests expected this week from those unhappy about the housing of asylum seekers in hotels. Are you worried about those escalating, and what's your message to people potentially who will protest?
Well, we're clear that we need to end asylum hotels. That is a manifesto commitment that we made across the course of this Parliament. We're also taking much stronger action to tackle issues around illegal working, around criminality in the asylum system, including strengthening the law. So it's really important that we can take those serious steps, step by step, in order to bring down the numbers who are in the asylum system, in order to be able to close the asylum hotels, and in order to be able to restore order and control to the system, which frankly we inherited, an asylum system that really was just in chaos and is taking time to put that order and control back in place.
Finally, Home Secretary, you may have seen one of your colleagues, the Homelessness Minister, has made the news, Rushanara Ali, ending the contract of her private tenants, then relisting her property for £700 more a month. What do you make of that? Is that a good look?
So I don't know any of the details of this, but I understand that she has followed all of the rules in this case.
So that was the Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper. The elephant in the room, Miriam, how many were detained, and why won't she tell us? Now, she says she's not going to give a running commentary on operational matters, but they've trumpeted the fact they've detained some. Is it a handful? Is it full?
Yeah. Well, I suppose they are very nervous, given what's happened in the past, the promises that have been made, stop the boats, immigration down to tens of thousands. I kind of understand why they don't want to put a number on it. And let's say they've detained 50 and only one of those gets deported. Yeah. That's going to look pretty embarrassing. But more than that, it's going to be a signal to people smugglers that the deal's not going to work. So you can kind of see, I can see her position on this. She doesn't want to reveal too much, but it doesn't look very transparent, does it?
No, and Yeah, and how quickly are the human rights lawyers going to be banging on the door of that detention centre to say, we want to represent them and let them out. Let's go to Dover, where our Home and Security Editor, Mark White, joins us live. Mark, morning to you. We don't know how many have been detained, but what we do know is in the last 24 hours, some 400 migrants have illegally crossed the channel.
Yes, in the process of doing that, we'll take it to 400 by the end of the morning, Andrew. I think the reason that the government is being coy on the issue of the numbers that they're sending or intend to send back to France is because it's very modest indeed. And actually, by being coy, by not giving us a running commentary on just what the numbers are at the moment, that can work to their advantage, they feel, in that the people smugglers will then not know how many of those coming across the channel are being detained with a view to returning them to France. But that can only last so long, because Yvette Cooper has promised to give us regular updates of the figures and to see how it's working. And you're right to mention the potential for appeals. I think those human rights lawyers, the activist groups, will be banging on the doors of immigration removal centres as we speak to try to represent those who have been detained. They will put in legal challenges. There is no doubt about it. You heard from Yvette Cooper there, though. She believes that because France is a safe country, that any legal challenge can be swiftly dealt with. But how swiftly is still an unknown factor, because we've seen, government pledges to quickly deal with challenges in the past that have dragged on for many months, sometimes years. And as I say, what we are embarked on at the moment is a process where the French are being notified that the first of those migrants have been detained prior to removal. They've got 14 days in which to respond. If they have any particular issues with any one of those migrants, they can object to that, and the government will have to think again. And then after those 14 days, of course, we could get the challenges in that period, and they will have to be dealt with through the court system. And as we know with the court system, that can take an awful long time.
And Mark, let's say that we do get to the position where one or more migrants is cleared to be returned to France. How is that actually going to happen? How are these people going to be removed to France? Where in France are they taken to? Are they going to be just dumped back on a beach or taken to some sort of reception centre to have a different claim process?
Well, they'll be taken over. I wouldn't imagine they'll be flown over. They're probably just going to be put on a ferry. To be honest, the numbers are so modest, they could shove them on a small boat and send them back the other way. They're probably not going to do that for the optics of it. But, in terms of the sort of return to France, it will be relatively quickly and easy. They do it all the time in terms of return flights of those kind of foreign national offenders, those who have overstayed their visa, other failed asylum seekers usually get flown out. But because it's just across the channel, it's probably just as easy to either put them in a ferry or shove them into the Channel Tunnel in the back of a detention van.
All right, Mark, that's Mark White. Thanks for that. And our security editor in Dover. We're going to talk now to the former Immigration Minister, Kevin Foster. Kevin, is this an important breakthrough in the fight against these illegal migrants? Or is it just more PR gimmickry?
Well, I think some of the announcements we've seen today are likely to be more about PR than substance, as has been touched on already. The government say they detained migrants. Well, that could be 2 people, that could be 200 people. What I suspect they've actually done is they'll have picked a cohort to be detained, probably, let's say, 30, 40 people. They'll have looked at cases that are very unlikely to have human rights claims will be particularly controversial. So I suspect, and this will be what, by the way, their legal representatives will be trying to identify this morning, is what is the cohort they picked to see if they can try and argue some claims there in terms of discrimination, no matter how fanciful they may be, just to get claims in to start trying to frustrate the process. And probably why they haven't confirmed the number today is they are probably fearful that in a couple of weeks' time they might have to say, well, we detained, for sake of argument, 40, and 20 argued this, 10 argued that, 5 argued this, and there's now 2-3 people finally getting on a plane or going back to France in the back of a prison wagon. So those are the sorts of things that I think that, is this a breakthrough? No. The numbers are quite small compared to the numbers that have come over, but the government will, to be fair to them, be able to claim some success if they can actually return people. But will it smash the gangs or stop the boats entirely? No.
Now, Yvette Cooper also refers to illegal working that we know occurs with many asylum seekers who are placed in hotels and housed in the community who are working illegally for food delivery companies, etc. She talked about a crackdown on that. How important do you think, to address those pull factors as well as detain people at the border?
Well, there's a range of things you need to do. There's no one solution to this problem. Yes, cracking down on opportunities to work illegally in this country, partly how people actually pay back the cost of being smuggled here. The gangs and those who organise these trips don't do it for free. Also, as we did, ending some of things like family reunion rights, so that you can't just one adult male get themselves to the UK and then look to be reunited with a wider family. Effectively, buy one trip in a small boat, get 2 or 3 family members come for free. So those are the sort of things that do need to be dealt with. But ultimately, you do need to have answers to the question of, if you don't want someone in this country, where are you going to send them? That's what, for example, the Rwanda plan sought to answer with people from countries like Eritrea or Afghanistan, where we'd struggle to actually make returns. And so, of course, one of the reasons perhaps why Donald Trump's now picked it up is to answer that question in the United States about what you do with people who've arrived illegally, but you can't return to their home country.
Is it impossible, Kevin, to sort this out if we remain a fully fledged part of the European Court of Human Rights?
Yeah, it's very, very difficult, particularly with what we've seen in terms of activist judiciary. It's not just the ECHR. We need to remember there's various other pieces of international, much of which date back 60, 70 years to a very different era of international travel and an international circuit situation. We almost certainly do need to leave the ECHR to deal with much of the objections that are thrown up. Although in terms of returns to France itself, that probably won't be too much of an issue. The issue will be, a lot of lawyers will probably try and argue about refoulement, which is the fancy term for, yes, you might be saying you're sending me back to France, but I'm worried France will then send me on to another country. That's where you'll see a lot of the legal arguments focus in this area.
Surely that is absurd. I mean, you could kind of understand the argument for that when it came to Rwanda as a third country that's obviously very, very different, long way away, not part of the EU, not part of the ECHR. But that's an absurd argument to claim that France might be at risk of refouling people, surely.
Well, it might be absurd, but we'd all sit here thinking that particular type of chicken nugget, and that's why your kid likes, means you shouldn't be deported. We'd all, with the 3 of us, would sit and think that's absolutely absurd, as would the vast majority of GBNews viewers, perhaps the entirety of our viewers. Unfortunately, an immigration tribunal disagreed and thought, actually, that was a good reason for someone not to be removed. It is the type of argument you will see in this setting, because, of course, the question comes, if someone's sent back to France, what happens to them next? And if we've decided they haven't got a claim here, that they can go back to France, what is France's plans with them? Because just to have people milling round, particularly in the part of Calais, they're either A, going to become a problem for France, or B, guess what they're going to do next? They're going to get back either into the back of a lorry or a small boat and try again in the UK. And it's worth noting on this agreement, only applies to people who've arrived in a small boat. It doesn't apply if, for example, someone jumps out the back of a lorry, which has visibly just travelled on a ferry from France.
All right, Kevin. That's Kevin Foster, a former immigration minister.
Gosh, how can it be so difficult?
I know.
It's really so frustrating.
Because you've got to get on the plane to Germany and Greece and see how they're doing.
I know.
Because we saw yesterday, they're just...
That's what it's going to take.
They're just sending...
What motivates these lawyers to find any reason they can to keep people in this country?
Money.
I suppose so.
They get paid.
A lot of these are legal aid cases,
and who pays
aren't
it? We do through our legal aid.
Well, true. It can't be that big money compared to...
So.
Anyway.
Now at
Well,
next.
Moving on, if this one's for you, Andrew, if you're after another Brazilian butt lift. I did not write that.
No.
Andrew, you look wonderful as you are.
Thank you very much.
But we're going to tell you about the government's crackdown on cowboy cosmetic procedures. First of all, if you're in search of some holiday sun, here's the forecast for our top European holiday destinations.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Across northwest Africa and western parts of Iberia, another heat wave is set to continue this week. Temperatures pushing into the low 40s, particularly across inland areas. And with those high temperatures comes plenty of sunshine, particularly across Spain, parts of Italy and also parts of Greece. And those UV levels are set to be high, so do take care if you're heading out on holiday. And that weather is set to continue as we head over the weekend and into next week. That's it from me. Bye-bye.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm especially glad to be joined by Mandy this morning. Mandy with me here. How are you finding the challenge so far, Mandy?
It's all right so far because it's not too hot.
Yeah, that's a tremendous relief. And you're a veteran yourself, but also a beneficiary of SAFA, Mandy.
I am, yeah. I served 12 years in the Royal Air Force. And then SAFA supported myself and my son when my husband took his own life.
Yeah, it's a tremendously sad story. Your husband, Chris, himself a veteran suffering from PTSD after a tour in Afghanistan.
Yeah, I mean, he suffered for a long time. So in 21 years, he did 15 tours. I mean, the support we got, it wasn't just life-changing, it was life-saving, which was so important at the time. And SAFA, they were strong for me, which meant that I could be strong for our son.
Yeah, and your son now 17, he must be so proud of his father's memory and your service as well.
I think so. You know, we talk about his dad all the time, and it's very, very important that we keep his memory alive. So we're doing little things. So we've just got his name on a memorial wall at our local football club, which again is important because it shows Jamie that he'll always be remembered.
So beautiful. I think our viewers and listeners will be so touched by that. And as you're completing this march today, these 10 miles, you just saw some of the cadets behind us now. What are you thinking about as you make that march?
It's how many people come out to support the charity, which I think is so important, because without all our supporters, without our volunteers, you know, SAFA can't exist. And SAFA are there when people need them the most, and that needs to be able to continue. So without things like this and everyone supporting us, it won't.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Okoye, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom. It's 10 to 10, and the government has announced a crackdown on unsafe cosmetic procedures as they describe the industry as being plagued with a wild west of dodgy practitioners.
So under the plans, only qualified healthcare professionals registered with the Care Quality Commission will be allowed to give treatments such as Botox and lip fillers.
Well, reality TV star Faye Winter joins us now. Thank you so much for coming into the studio. Now, Faye, this is a topic close to your heart. Can you tell us what happened to you?
Yeah, well, I went obviously onto Love Island national television and I had botched lips, which most people saw if they were watching the show. They were overstretched, they were overfilled. I'd had a massive issue with Botox before where the person that administered it, he wasn't qualified, he actually was a property developer. And had put the Botox...
Why did you go to a property developer to
I
put
didn't
Botox?
know.
Oh,
I didn't know. He told me he was from a medical background, and at the time, we didn't have the platforms that we have now to be able to check. So, and he administered too much Botox into the wrong muscle, and my whole forehead just relaxed. I had no eyebrow arch. I couldn't move my face. Obviously, Botox, you're not meant to be able to move your face, but I had no eyebrow arch. It completely relaxed my muscles. So, yeah, it was a bit of a scary time.
So this consultation from the government today is looking at which procedures should be regulated, how that should be done, starting with the most risky procedures first. That would have helped you at the time. So do you think this is a good idea? Which procedures particularly do you think would benefit from regulation?
Yeah, you know, for me, I've been a massive part of this for the last 4 years because I want people to learn from my mistakes. They shouldn't have to go through what I went through. So I want it to be, my stance is that only people with medical training should be able to put a needle near anyone's face with any kind of muscle relaxer, with any type of filler, wherever that be. You know, this for us is a massive day. It's a massive step in the right direction. But also, what are those licences going to look like? Are they going to say we're going to make sure that you're licensed and then actually turn around and be like, well, all you need is a UK address? Yes. We don't know what that licence is going to be yet.
Can I ask a personal question? Why does somebody attractive and young like you need Botox?
I think we've all got insecurities, and I've never been somebody to sit there and say, you know, if you can't fix it or if you can't make a change to your insecurities, then you shouldn't be able to. I've always said, you know, if you have insecurities and you can be a more confident version of yourself and there's the option there to do it, why shouldn't you be able to do it because of other people's opinions? But at the same time, the only option that there should ever be is for it to be done safely.
Now, one of the provisions the government's looking at is preventing under 18s from accessing any of these treatments at all. And they are worried about social media trends pushing children into some procedures which could be irreversible sometimes and certainly could be dangerous. Would you agree with that stance?
Yeah, you know, I think when it comes to social media, marketing, the beauty industry, it's always been the chicken or the egg scenario, because my experience of going on to reality TV is that we're scrutinised for the way we look anyway, so we come out and change the way we look, regardless of if you've had work done or not. But then that's been the way it's been for however many years since magazines have been around. We all have a beauty standard. And, you know, the public will have their opinions on the way that people look, so then they change themselves, and then people in the public eye are then kind of blamed for then starting trends or continuing trends.
But I suppose... But 17-year-olds surely are too young.
Yeah, oh my God, far too young. And I was actually surprised because I thought it was already 18.
Right.
So I was already very surprised by that. But then again, I know that, you know, some people are definitely cowboys and they'll just take the money. They won't look at ID, you know, ignorance is bliss and all that.
Of course, as well as difficult procedures in this country and things going wrong, we've also seen an alarming rise in people going to particularly Turkey, but other countries to have procedures, and a lot of medical problems resulting, even deaths. I think there have been 25 deaths in recent years just from people going to Turkey alone. What would you say to somebody thinking of going abroad for treatment?
You know, this is a whole other thing in itself. I don't believe that us, the NHS or taxpayers, should be paying to reverse work. I don't believe we should be. You know, I understand people, it is cheaper in Turkey, but at the same time, it comes with a much higher risk. So I think people need to make their own decisions on that. I would say if you can have it done in the UK, it is the only way forward. But, you know, it's really difficult when people have that beauty standard and want to achieve it. And if they can get it done for the third of the price, I see the appeal, but your health is so much more, like, worth so much more. And you'll end up paying more in the long run anyway.
And how do you know that if you are going to have some treatment, maybe you can have your lips done or you're going to have a butt lift or some Botox, how do you know you're going to a proper registered practitioner now. Is there a kite mark or something people should be looking for?
Yeah, well, obviously, that people should be insured, but also there are platforms now like SaveFace. I've worked really closely with them, and they will be. You can go on and you can check your practitioner.
Right.
But that wasn't a thing when I had my botched work. It wasn't a thing at all. And you know, doing your research. But again, I do think it is, and it's great that the government are doing something. It should be something that they take responsibility for too.
Well, Faye, thank you so much for joining us, and thanks for raising awareness of what's going on out there. It's a wild west, isn't it?
You ever had Botox?
No, Andrew, and I don't intend to.
Just
the GB News makeup artists are all I need.
They do a great job. Faye, thanks so much for coming.
Thank you.
Now, still ahead, are we going to see an end to the war in Ukraine as it's confirmed Donald Trump is to meet Russian leader Vladimir Putin in the coming days? This is Britain's Newsroom on GB.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good morning. This is the latest AI travel news from GBnews.com. The A720 eastbound is restricted from Gogarburn to Hermiston Gate off slip due to a broken down vehicle. Expect longer travel times. Roadworks on the M4 westbound between junctions 24 at Coldra and 28 at Tredegar Park have closed the road with diversions. Follow posted directions. In Kent, a 30-minute delay on the M25 clockwise between junctions 2 and 4 due to congestion. Normal conditions expected by 10:15 this morning. And on the trains, Hull trains are disrupted between Hull and Selby, and Northern buses are replacing services between Sellafield and Workington. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Let us take on some of your financial stresses and pay your mortgage or rent for the next 12 months. We want to give you a cash lump sum equivalent to 12 of your monthly mortgage or rent payments, up to an unbelievable £20,000. We'll also boost that by a further £5,000, so you really could have some fun in the coming year. For a chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entry start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB15 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 29th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits. You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it. That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless. No, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show. Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good morning. It's 10 o'clock on Thursday, the 7th of August. We're live across the United Kingdom. This is Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
1 in, 1 out, they said. Well, apps with clout. Well, the government has detained the first illegal Channel migrants under the deal with France. The Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, gave this reaction.
No one should be making this journey in the first place, and that's why this is now starting the process to return people and to undermine this vile trade in people.
Well, the government won't confirm the numbers of small boat migrants who have been returned to France, but it's likely to be a tiny fraction of the 400 who will have crossed by lunchtime today.
Cowboy Cosmetics. Well, the government cracks down on rogue beauty operators to prevent people from getting dangerous bodged butt lifts, Botox and fillers.
Huge breaking news. A Kremlin aide has confirmed that the Russian leader Vladimir Putin will meet Donald Trump in person next week to discuss ending the war in Ukraine.
And at Solar Scourge, a Northamptonshire village is furious at the prospect of a new solar panel farm, with the local MP Sarah Ball leading calls to scrap the idea.
You are going to be taking agricultural fields out of use and replacing it with solar panels when there are warehouses, there are car parking spaces and other dead spaces you can use. That is the right place, not here.
Well, the village would be surrounded on 3 sides by solar panels. Those fields are currently growing wheat. Farmers are asking, what about food security?
Sick of Britain? 1 in 5 doctors are fed up with poor treatment and chase better pay abroad. Do we have a medical crisis? I think we know the answer to that. So should we treat our GPs better?
And HMRC staff attended a taxpayer-funded seminar on the guilt of being British during working hours. And it sparked outrage online.
Well, the Trump-Putin thing is massive. And it's the threat of sanctions, because we gave a deadline, didn't we? I don't know how many days were left to go.
Yeah.
And I think that's why Putin's agreed to see him, because Russia is virtually bankrupt already.
Yeah. Of course, Trump came to power promising to end the war in a day. He's slightly missed that deadline. But it's been interesting to see how he's moved from trying to see this as kind of a brokering a business deal to actually really starting to see the side of the Ukrainians and what they've suffered in this.
I think part of what they may come out of it is that the Russians agree to end the aerial bombardment of Ukraine, although the ground war may continue. But that will be a huge relief to Ukraine.
Well, that would be absolutely incredible, wouldn't it, if we could make some progress on that. Well, let us know what you think. Send your views and comments to gbnews.com/yoursay. First of all, your news headlines with Tatiana.
Miriam, thank you very much. The top stories: migrants who arrived in the UK after crossing the English Channel have been detained under the new one-in, one-out deal. The first detentions came as people arrived in Dover yesterday, the first day the pilot scheme came into force. The Home Office said detentions began for those who arrived on Wednesday afternoon, and they'll be held in immigration removal centres until they are returned to France. Home Secretary Yvette Cooper says it sends a message to every migrant thinking of making the illegal journey.
Well, the pilot has now begun, and the first migrants who arrived on small boat are now in detention. That is the first step to removing them to France, because no one should be making this journey in the first place, and that's why this is now starting the process to return people and to undermine this vile trade in people. We won't provide operational details at this point that criminal gangs can simply use and exploit. But no one should be in any doubt. Anyone who arrives from now on is eligible for immediate detention and return. And this pilot will now build, because we are determined that no one should be making this journey.
And the Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philp also spoke to GB News this morning.
I'm afraid it's got no chance of working, because we know that under this plan, only 6% of people crossing will get returned to France, 94% will get to stay in the UK. And obviously, if 94% can stay in the UK, that's no deterrent at all. But I did think yesterday, I'll go and check it out for myself. So I was on the Channel yesterday in a fishing boat. I went from Dover to Calais, had a look around the French coast. And actually, the weather was there was a bit of a swell because of the aftermath of the storm. So the conditions weren't great, but within half an hour of arriving off the French coast, we found 2 boats stuffed full of illegal migrants, almost entirely young men, I would add, about 150 of them in total in 2 boats. So they clearly hadn't been deterred at all.
In other news, a Kremlin aide has this morning confirmed that the US president will meet the Russian President Putin in the coming days, and that a venue is to be decided and announced later today. The US president is seeking a 3-way peace deal with Russia and Ukraine to finally bring an end to the war.
Had some very good talks with President Putin today, and there's a very good chance that we could be ending the ending the round, ending the end of that road. That road was long and continues to be long, but there's a good chance that there will be a meeting very soon.
The Trump team previously said the meeting between him and Putin would be conditional on the Russian president meeting his Ukrainian counterpart, Volodymyr Zelensky. It comes as Mr. Trump had set a deadline of tomorrow for Russia to come to a ceasefire agreement with Ukraine or face further sanctions. Meanwhile, the US president's sweeping new tariffs on more than 90 countries around the world have come into effect. Earlier, the president hit India with a 50% tariff, which will take effect on the 27th of August unless it stops buying Russian oil. Donald Trump has announced a 100% tariffs on computer chips made outside the United States. The move threatens increase the cost of electronics made outside the US. No date has been set for when they might come into force. A previously announced hike of tariff rates on a range of global trading partners ranging from 10% up to beyond 40% comes into effect today. Borrowing costs are set to ease further, with the Bank of England poised to cut the base interest rate for the 5th time in a year. The bank's Monetary Policy Committee is widely expected to reduce the base rate by 0.25 percentage points to 4% today. This would mark the 5th reduction since August last year, when rates started steadily coming down from a peak of 5.25%. A record number of 18-year-olds are likely to get into their first choice of university this year, the head of the Universities and Colleges Admissions Service says, even if they narrowly miss their grades. Dr Joe Saxton said universities were keen to enrol UK undergraduates because there was more uncertainty around international student numbers. She said they'd quite possibly accept students who did not meet the conditions of their offer, adding that domestic students offered universities stability for financial planning. The prediction comes as thousands of students will open A-level, T-level, BTEC and other Level 3 results next week. And the government has announced a crackdown on unsafe cosmetic procedures. Under the plans, only qualified healthcare professionals registered with the Care Quality Commission will be allowed to give treatments such as Botox and lip filler. Under 18s will also be protected from potentially dangerous beauty trends on social media, with age restrictions on certain procedures. A government minister has described the industry as being plagued with a wild west of dodgy practitioners. Those are the latest GB News headlines. For now, more in half an hour.
Tune in to GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Welcome back. You're watching Britain's Newsroom. We're live across the United Kingdom on GB News with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
So the Home Office says the first detentions of illegal Channel migrants have now taken place after the deal reached between the UK and France, one in, one out, came into force exactly 2 days ago.
Well, this same deal, which is part of Labour's plan to smash the gangs, but GB News has been warning that more migrant boats are already heading towards the British shores this morning.
We're going to go back to Dover, where our Home Security Editor Mark White is there. Mark, how many are there boats in the Channel as we speak?
Yes, there absolutely are. We anticipate that by lunchtime today, 400 migrants will have crossed the Channel illegally since yesterday. So weigh that up against the minuscule number that we expect to have been rounded up and detained by the government to send back. The government calls it a one-in, one-out deal. It's nothing of the sort. It's nowhere near that. It's a vast majority in and one out. OK, the government says it's a pilot scheme and it may be expanded depending on whether they can make it work. But that's a big if, because clearly, how do you judge the success of a deterrent scheme when you're sending back so few migrants? And then there's the issue of whether this could be the subject of multiple legal challenges. There is no doubt that as we speak, the human rights lawyers and the activist groups will be doing their level best to try to represent those Channel migrants who have been selected for return to France, and will be launching appeals. And they have become expert in being able to look at loopholes, to judge human rights laws in order to get the best possible outcome for those asylum seekers. So it may be that the smooth running of this scheme, even though Yvette Cooper argues that she believes there's not going to be much of a legal challenge, given that France is a safe country to return to, well, the courts and the human rights lawyers might have a different viewpoint. And just before I hand back, maybe the eagle-eyed of you have spotted what looks to me like a pirate ship in the harbour here at Dover. I'll just pop out of the way. I don't think it's carrying migrants. It is flying the Spanish flag, and we know that the people smugglers are always looking to adapt and overcome. Well, maybe this is their answer to Sir Keir Starmer, their own little mini Spanish armada.
Well, yeah, you need to start playing bowls to see off the Armada. Mark, just before we let you go, why have they called it a one-in, one-out scheme when it patently is absolutely not one-in, one-out?
Well, exactly. It's all about the messaging, isn't it? And that's also why Yvette Cooper today is not going anywhere near telling us what the numbers are that are crossing. One, because it's very modest. I mean, they've admitted that part, that the numbers initially are going to be modest. But also, if they tell us that they've detained 30 or 40 migrants, we know that if legal challenges are mounted, that number may diminish very significantly, and they may embarrassingly have to tell us a few weeks down the line that they've only sent half a dozen or less over to France. So that's why they're being quite coy with the numbers to begin with. And also the hope is, from the government's point of view, that the messaging might get out there. It might be confusing and concerning for people smugglers and those hoping to use their services, not knowing if they might be returned. It might put some people off. Well, I'm sure the people smugglers will just be trying to tell those potential customers, look, don't worry, it's fine. The chances of you ever being removed are likely to be very limited.
Indeed. All right, Mark, thanks for that. That's Mark White, who's our Home Security Editor in Dover. Let's get some political reaction to this. We're going to talk to Graham Stringer, who is the Labour MP for Blackley and Middleton South. Good morning to you, Graham. Are you cheered? Do you think the government has finally got a grip of this crisis on the Channel? Because we've now heard of the detention of some migrants, although we don't know how many.
No, I'm not convinced this scheme will work. In fact, I have no idea why it's being introduced. We know that there are schemes in Europe, in Denmark in particular, a social democratic country. In many ways, its political system is similar to the UK's. They have actually, as close as you can get, solved the migration problem by a number of measures. I don't know why we're not adapting that and copying that. But I don't think this scheme will work. In your intro, you talked about decisions made by the government. In actual fact, we've transferred the decision-making to France. They will decide whether or not they take these migrants back. There are lots of loopholes. If you claim to be under 18, and there is no certain way at the moment of telling people's age you can't be deported if you've got an outstanding claim for human rights. And there are a whole series of other holes in the scheme. So sadly, I don't think it's going to work.
The French certainly don't seem to have much intention of helping us too much in this area. And yesterday, the Shadow Home Secretary, Chris Philp, was on a boat in the Channel watching migrant boats come over. And he witnessed, he claims, French authorities taking life jackets off the migrants once they cross into British waters in order to give them again to other migrants setting off set sail from France. They don't seem to have any interest in solving this problem, yet Macron seems to have convinced Keir Starmer, the Labour Prime Minister, that this is a mutual agreement. Do you think we've been duped by the French?
Yes, and we're paying a lot of money to the French for trying to patrol their borders and stopping people getting in boats. So I think we have been duped. The People crossing the channel will only stop if they believe there is no point in coming. If they believe they're going to be detained and deported to wherever, not necessarily France, then they will stop coming. That's happened in Denmark, which has solved the problem, and in Greece. People are detained until there is somewhere for them to go. But what we're doing the exact opposite. People who come over are getting preferential treatment compared to my constituents. As I'm sure you did, Miriam, when you were an MP, you get letters and emails from people saying, where can I find a dentist? Very difficult. Where can I find council housing or social housing? Very difficult. I can't get a GP appointment. These people coming across illegally, having paid international smugglers, international criminals, basically a lot of money, are being given preferential treatment in all those areas. Health, dentistry, and housing. And my constituents are very angry about that indeed.
Would you, Graham, stop them being put in hotels immediately? And perhaps they should be put in...
Yes, I would.
Right. And what would you put? Create detention centres?
Yes, and I wouldn't be saying the solution to the hotel problem, which is a genuine problem and is creating economic as well as social havoc in some of our times. I wouldn't say, therefore, we're going to find them housing, because that, again, means that the people I represent will find it more difficult to get housing. I would detain them in detention centres until they were evacuated. And one is not going to treat them inhumanely, if that's a word, but I would ensure that they were given food and treated properly, but not given cash and not to believe that they were going to get employment and eventually be helped settle in this country.
Graham, poll after poll is showing that immigration is now top of the public's list of concerns when it comes to political questions. At some point, the government is going to have to get tougher on the small boats, as well as legal immigration. Do you think that Labour MPs really understand how politically important this problem is? And would they, in any circumstance, be willing to vote for, let's say, suspending the Human Rights Act or disallowing these kind of claims? Or do you think they just don't really understand how important it is to people?
All politicians want to get re-elected if they're going to put themselves forward to the electorate. And I think gradually Labour MPs, particularly those who represent areas with low-cost housing, where a lot of the migrants will go, are beginning to realise that there is a threat from different parties to what has been a fairly safe Labour vote in those areas. So I think that realisation is coming. Is it there? Not yet. And Labour MPs are motivated partly by believing in human rights, believing in doing the right thing for people, helping people, ensuring people can have a decent life. And I think they're finding it very difficult. But I think the reality of electoral politics will hit home to them. Otherwise, the Labour Party is in a very difficult situation indeed.
All right, Graham, that's Graham Stringer, who's the Labour MP for Blackley and Middleton South, and a voice of common sense, I may say, on this issue. Really important. Great to hear a Labour MP saying, close the hotels now.
That's right.
And put them in detention camps.
Yeah. And this really, at the end of the day, is down to Labour MPs, because if there was a move on the backbench of the Labour Party, they detain and deport everybody, for example.
They'd have to do it.
Then they would, but I fear we're a very long way from that.
Well, I mean, you wait and see when we get the local elections next May, which is coming much sooner than you think.
Be a catalyst.
And I think Reform are going to benefit very greatly from this ongoing crisis, because I think let's stop calling it one in, one out, because it isn't.
It's one out and then lots
hundreds
more
in
that the French want to send us.
Yeah, exactly. Now, moving on, here's your chance to live mortgage or rent-free for a year and get a bonus of £5,000 in your bank in our latest Great British giveaway. Guess what? If you haven't got a mortgage or rent, you can still enter and win £15,000.
Very good.
Here's all the details you need.
This is your chance to live mortgage or rent-free for an entire year in the latest Great British Giveaway. That's right, we'll give you a cash lump sum that will cover 12 of your monthly mortgage or rent payments, up to an incredible £20,000. Plus, we'll add £5,000 on top of that for you to treat yourself. And if you don't have a mortgage or rent to pay, lucky you, we'll give you £15,000 in cash instead. You have to hurry though, as lines will close on the 29th of August. For a chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB15 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 29th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Well, coming up next, do you feel guilty for being British? HMRC certainly thinks you should do, because some of their civil servants have been attending a seminar to discuss just that.
Yeah, in work time, by the way.
Yes, that is...
When they should be working, when they should be answering the phone.
Do you know, I think tax has just got so complicated they've given up.
Ah, you're with Britain's Newsroom from GB News.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Dan was one of the victims of the attack, and he was just, you know, within touching distance from the leading suicide bomber. And when that bomb went off, it killed 6 people.
It's still really surreal. It's still a kind of strange thought to realise that I was right in the middle of what happened that day. And even though it's 20 years, it still feels like yesterday.
Yeah.
The pain and the emotional torment that goes with that is just as fresh now as when it just happened.
Mm. And when you think back to that morning, because you've written a book about that day and your experience since, you actually were considering not going into work that day.
Yeah, my whole story of 7/7 is what I kind of term as sliding door moments. There's so many opportunities that were presented to me to do something different, or to stick to my normal routine and not step outside of that. And yeah, there's countless times where if I would have made a different decision, then I wouldn't have been on that train at that time. If I'd have got up on time, if I hadn't missed my stop, there's so many things that I can think back on and think, if only I've done this, if only I've done that. But it serves no purpose now, because what's happened has happened.
You were horrendously injured, but people died on that bus that day.
Yeah, I mean, from the area of the train that I was on when the bomb went off, I'm the only one that survived. He killed everybody around me. And that's incredibly tough to live with, to know that you survived something that everybody around you didn't. And I was pretty much laying in and amongst dead bodies and body parts for about an hour and 40 minutes before I was taken out the tunnel.
And what do you remember about the murderer?
I think the most terrifying thing about it is just how calm he was. There was no fear, there was no hesitation, and the most scariest thing of all was he just looked like everybody else.
GB News, the People's Channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Welcome back. It's 10:25. You're watching Britain's Newsroom.
And we've got the panel here, Carol Malone and her sparring partner, Jonathan Liss.
Jonathan Liss, I'd be sparring partner Carol Malone, if you don't
That's
mind.
a very respectable shirt for you, Jonathan.
Oh, thank you, Andrew. I thought I'd go bright Bermuda at the same time.
Malone, significant political development. Donald Trump said before he became President of the United States he'd solve the Ukraine war problem on day one.
Yes.
Well, he hasn't pulled that off, but a meeting next week with Putin. Clearly, Putin's blinked because of the prospect of sanctions.
Yes, OK. And you know, I mean, and the feeling you get now is that Trump is rapidly losing patience with Putin. He realises he's been made a fool of. He realises Putin is starting to make him look stupid. This was the thing that I think Trump thought was going to clinch the Nobel Peace Prize, and clearly it hasn't worked. But the interesting thing is that there's talk about whether Zelensky will join the talks. And it would make absolute sense that he does.
Yeah.
Why shouldn't he be involved in the talks that are about his country, where, you know, tens of thousands of people have died thanks to Putin? Anyway, so yeah, I mean, it's an interesting development. But he's saying that the deadline expires tomorrow. He gave them a couple of weeks. What can Trump actually do once the deadlines expire? What do we think he will do?
Isn't this the whole point, though? Because Trump has been occasionally using rhetoric and threats against Putin, but has not acted on any single one of them. So he's threatened tariffs, which is the one hammer that Trump has, and everything is a nail.
It's a pretty big hammer.
It can be. I mean, he's just imposed an extra 25% tariff on India, apparently for buying Russian oil. Now, if that's the reason, or does Trump really love tariffs? It's hard to say. But if he was actually prepared to carry out a threat on Putin and implement new sanctions or new tariffs or whatever, even I doubt the impact of tariffs as a political move. But if you were to do that, then I'd have a bit more faith and credibility. But what it seems, though, is that he just wants to sort of keep pushing Putin along, keep giving him these arbitrary deadlines, which Putin misses, and then you have a sort of a bit of brinkmanship on both sides, and then nothing happens.
But
and then Putin carries on his
fool.
aggression.
He's not going to let that happen. And that's the point with Trump. He does do outrageously unexpected, controversial things. And I think he is likely to do, so then I think the question just is what is he likely to do? He knows he's been made to look stupid. He knows it's weakened him in the eyes of the world, and I think he might do something.
Well, look, he could, but Carol, you know, he's taken so many opportunities to humiliate Zelensky, and obviously, you know, they've come a journey. They've gone on a journey since that February showdown, which was just so horrific to watch. But still, the United States could be doing a lot more to support Ukraine, and it's choosing not to. The Republican Party is not pro-Ukraine, and so it seems that Trump is trying to sort of, you know, hedge his bets and keep his pro-Putin wing of the party happy. But eventually, you do have to, if you're going to keep making these threats and you don't carry them out, you get taco Trump. Trump always chickens out, and that makes him look weak.
I suspect he already knows what the deal is, which is why he's agreed to see him.
Yes, I think that's
and we'll find out later.
Well, wait to see if Zelensky comes, because if Zelensky is there, then I'll have more faith in him.
And we'll find out later where that big meeting is going to take. Now, let's talk about migrants. So, Malone, are you cheered? We just talked to Labour MP Graham Stringer and said, so you're thrilled to bits, are you? You've detained a few migrants. Said, no, I'm not thrilled to bits. The scheme won't work. Nope. And he also said, close the migrant hotels now.
I mean, he's quite right. You know, the thing is, this scheme is just, it's never going to work. We knew weeks ago it was never going to work. Now we've kind of had the proof it's not going to work. It's going to be, you know, 35,000 in, 2,000 out, maybe. But, you know, what we talked about here a couple of weeks ago was that, you know, the 50 in, 50 out. We know that the 50 from here are going to make human rights claims, and they're going to be held up here. They're not going to have to go. We knew that 2 weeks ago, and now it's been confirmed it's happened. Lisa Nandy, the Culture Secretary, did say yesterday that some of those claims would be heard in France. We now know that's not going to be the case. And the bottom line is, you know, it's you know, Farage has warned recently. His phrase was there's going to be societal collapse with the amount of people coming in. And that's what's going to happen. You know, the chances of us getting the deterrent element, there's no deterrent element here. There was a figure today, it said, I think it was Dan Hodges said it, it's 16 to 1 against it working, and that's a 6% chance that you'll be one of the people fingered.
So that's not a deterrent. I think that's not a deterrent.
So if you're determined to come here, a 6% chance of you being fingered to stay is actually.
Well, I don't know where he gets that figure from, but one thing I would agree with you on is that this is a gimmick that's not going to change any facts on the ground, and it's sort of tinkering around the edges. If you think this is a crisis, then it's not going to solve anything, and if you don't think this is a crisis, then it's just a distraction from the actual issues facing.
crisis?
As I've told you many times, Carol, I think it's an issue, it's a problem. There are ways to fix it, which the government is not entertaining, safe legal routes, etc. And so, but 25,000 people arriving on boats, it's a problem, it's an issue, it has to be dealt with. It is not societal collapse. Nigel Farage is playing this up for his own political interest.
Hang on, because he's got a point. And Graham Stringer's talking about closing these hotels now. There's that extraordinary story today about how these migrant hotels are hotbeds of criminality.
We know.
Hang on. I've used that expression, and let me explain why.
We do know that out of control immigration is fueling crime, and now we have the proof of that because 50 hotels, just 50 of the 250 we have migrants in, were looked at. And from the people from those 50 hotels, 425 offences, criminal offences, have been committed. Of those, 109 were violent offences, 44 were sexual offences, 4 alleged counts of rape. So these people are coming to our country and they're being put up in 4-star hotels. They're getting
taxpayer expense.
At taxpayer, they're getting every luxury you can possibly imagine, things that they would never get in their own country, and yet they still come here and they're hurting people, they're robbing, and they're.
Well, a couple of them, we cannot expect asylum seekers are human beings. Human beings do bad things sometimes.
Oh, really?
You can't expect people.
Really, when a country is giving you a new life,
not everyone who comes over here is going to be a saint.
You can't be allowed to say it's okay to rape.
Of course, how dare you say that? I did not say that. I would never say how it's okay to rape.
All women have been raped.
What I'm saying is that some people who come here, of course, will commit crimes, and they should be dealt with in the normal way. It doesn't mean we have to throw the baby out of the bathwater by closing down the asylum system.
That some of the countries from which these people come do have much higher prevalence of sexual assault. That is known. We have the official statistics. Can we just go back to what you said about this is not an issue big enough for societal collapse? Now, in terms of the numbers coming in, obviously they're tiny compared to the number of legal migration. That's absolutely true. But the political and the kind of psychological impact of this is that people now think that their own government is against them, that their institutions are against them. When they hear that asylum seekers are getting free healthcare, free dentistry, when they hear about the cover-ups of people's immigration status when crimes are committed, people start to think that the government is against them. And that's a dangerous moment politically.
Well, I certainly agree that there are a lot of people who are very sort of disturbed and angry about this issue, and they want it to be resolved. I'm not saying it's not an issue. I'm saying that there are so many issues in this country, and this is 25,000 people. Even if you talk about immigration, it's a tiny fraction of the total number of migrants.
You say 25,000 people.
Well, that's so far.
There are protests in towns and cities all over this country, precisely because of this problem. So it is a societal problem. Parents are terrified about their children. People generally are worried about women and children on our streets and the violence these people are bringing. So it is a societal problem.
But Carol, I repeat the point from before, that the vast majority of offences and sexual offences are committed by white British...
Not per capita, they're not.
Even like
we
85%.
know the statistics that say Afghans are 22% more likely to commit sexual offences than Brits. These stats are out there, John. The fact you don't look at them or you want to ignore them.
About the whole Afghan thing, what I'm saying is that individuals are responsible for what they do. It's not a culture that makes someone do something. It's in the same way.
It is.
No, it isn't. In the same way that it's not Catholicism
culturally,
that made
a lot of these
priests
people
abuse people.
have very different values, women and children, to us.
We have to draw a close to this because it's an interesting conversation, but we may return to it because I think those figures are absolutely fascinating. And I repeat, Jonathan, they are hotbeds of criminality, these migrant hotels, I'm afraid. Now, we're going to get our 60-second update with Tatiana Sanchez.
Thank you very much and good morning. The top stories at 10:30. The government has detained the first illegal Channel migrants under the deal with France. The Home Office has confirmed that the first detentions have taken place under the UK-France pilot. The Home Secretary Yvette Cooper has been speaking this morning.
The first step to removing them to France, because no one should be making this journey in the first place, and that's why this is now starting the process to return people and to undermine this vile trade in people.
Kremlin aide has confirmed the US president will meet the Russian President Putin in the coming days and that a venue is to be decided and announced later today. The US president is seeking a three-way peace deal with Russia and Ukraine to finally bring an end to the war. A record number of 18-year-olds are likely to get into their first choice of university this year, the head of the Universities and Colleges Admission Service says, even if they miss their grades. The government has announced a crackdown on unsafe cosmetic procedures. Under the plans, only qualified healthcare professionals registered with the Care Quality Commission will be allowed to give treatments such as Botox and lip filler. And those are the latest headlines for now. More in half an hour.
Tune into GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Well, coming up next, surrounded by solar panels, does that sound like an almighty grotesque green nightmare or a vital planet-saving crusade?
It sounds almost as grotesque as one of Jonathan Liss's shirts.
Oh, unfair!
This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. There will be some showers, also some spells of rain today, but many will see plenty of brighter interludes. Feeling a little cooler in the west though, particularly as we start to see the breeze pick up through the course of the day. And quite a damp start to the day across Wales, parts of Devon and Cornwall, but any rain eventually breaking up, potentially to see some showers into the afternoon. But many seeing a mostly dry afternoon, still plenty of cloud though, particularly across central and southern parts. But it's likely we'll see plenty of showers, particularly across western areas of Scotland, where it will start to turn quite blustery into the afternoon. But in sheltered spots, in any sunshine, it will feel pleasant. Highs around 23 to 24 degrees Celsius. Now, later into the afternoon through into the evening, we will start to see those winds really strengthen, particularly around exposed coasts of Scotland. A chance we'll start to see some gales as the night progresses, a mix of clear spells, but also plenty of blustery showers. Most showers easing away across Northern Ireland, but once again around coastal areas, those winds are really going to pick up. And elsewhere across England and Wales, still a mix of clouds, some brighter spells to end the day, but still plenty of cloud across southern counties, a risk of showers here too. Otherwise, for many, it should be a mostly dry night, a little milder compared to the night just gone, but turning really blustery across parts of Scotland, Northern Ireland, some thicker areas of cloud moving into the west and far north of Scotland with some light outbreaks of rain during the morning. But as I say, for many it should be a mostly dry night and feeling fairly mild by the time we reach the morning too. And we'll see a little bit of a north-south split in the weather to end the week. Once again, a much brighter start, particularly across Wales, parts of the southwest compared to this morning. And the dry weather sticking around, plenty of spells of sunshine as we head into the afternoon. But across Scotland, Northern Ireland, parts of Northern England, a real blustery day ahead with some quite heavy outbreaks of rain at times across northern parts of Scotland. But warm in the sunshine, particularly across the southeast, highs reaching around 25 degrees Celsius.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good morning. This is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. The A725 southbound slip road at Belsey Hill roundabout is closed for roadworks. Use diversions. On the M4 westbound, there is a closure between junction 24 Coldra and junction 28 Tredegar Park due to roadworks with diversions. In West Berkshire, a broken-down vehicle on the M4 westbound between junction 12 and 13 has closed one lane, expected to clear by 10:45 this morning. And on the trains, expect disruptions between Hull and Selby, while Northern buses replace trains between Sellafield and Workington. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Andrew and Miriam with you, and we're talking about a tiny English village in Northamptonshire which soon will be surrounded by solar panels on three sides if developers get their way.
Well, the government's rush to renewables is causing fury among residents in Eastern Mordit. Our political correspondent Catherine Forster has the story.
It's the quintessential English village. 13th century church, thatched cottages, red phone box. Wheat is ripening in the fields surrounding Eastern Mordit. For now. But Energy Secretary Ed Miliband's zeal for renewables looks set to change that. Juliet Jarvis from Stop Green Hill Solar explains.
It's going to be surrounded on 3 sides by 750 acres of glinting solar panels, maybe up to 4.5 metres tall, rotating to face the sun.
The proposed solar panels are part of Green Hill Solar Farm, to be built on agricultural land across 8 sites in Northamptonshire, in total just below the size of Heathrow Airport. Local MP Sarah Bull is concerned.
We need clean energy, and I am a fan of renewable energy, but it's not in the right place here. When you are going to be taking agricultural fields out of use and replacing it with solar panels when there are warehouses, there are car parking spaces and other dead spaces you can use, that is the right place, not here. So these are not NIMBYs for trying to have a logic and approach to helping our food security in the future.
Local farmers agree.
Where is the food coming from in the future? If they're going to put solar panels all over the farmland, the food's got to be imported because it won't be grown in this country. And we're only 60% self-sufficient now. It's madness. It really is madness to put solar panels on good agricultural land.
The government makes the final call, and Juliet admits.
We are, David, against the Goliath. That's absolutely sure.
And Green Hill is likely just one of many solar farms coming to British countryside soon. Villager Bernard Livesey fell in love with Eastern Mordit almost 40 years ago.
It's appalling. I shall be regretting it and mourning what we have lost for the rest of my life.
The government told GB News that solar is central to its mission to deliver energy security and bring down bills. It says all projects are subject to rigorous planning processes and the views of the local community. Catherine Forster, GB News.
Fascinating story, and Catherine Forster's with us. Huge local opposition to this, but do they have any power to stop this happening?
Well, ultimately, this is a nationally significant infrastructure project, which means that the decision rests with Ed Miliband.
Oh, well, that's it then.
If this goes ahead, it'll be one of the biggest solar farms in the UK. Now, the village that we're talking about that's going to be surrounded on 3 sides potentially is just one of 8 sites that this solar farm will spread across. I just want to make a couple of points. First of all, on food security, Island Green Power, which is the company behind this solar farm and others, says itself on its own website, solar farms are typically built on land with lower quality agriculture value where growing food is not optimum. Now, this is all going to be built on agricultural land, and 66% of it is going to be built on the top 3 grades. So when I was there last week, I saw the wheat fields, lots of wheat fields, that will have solar panels. So I think there is a conflict between
so what happens to the wheat production?
Security and food security here. Another point is big business. This solar farm is one of many proposed by a company called Island Green Power. They are owned entirely by Macquarie Asset Management that invested very heavily in Thames Water. So there's a lot of money to be made here. Final point, NESO, the National Energy System Operator, have got a huge number of projects in the pipeline. Currently 738 gigawatts, which is 4 times as much clean energy as is needed to hit the government's 2030
Right. Now, huffing and puffing at my side during all of that was no stranger to this programme, Donna Hay McCarthy, who is the director, of course, of the Climate Media Coalition. The point about this, isn't it? Food security versus the government's eco-drive for net zero.
That's absolutely a canard. Currently, 0.5% of Britain's land is under golf courses. Currently, 0.1% is under solar. That's a fifth of our golf course. It's not a decision between food and solar and green energy. Remember, the Welsh Farmers Union has said they cannot guarantee food supply in future because of the current extreme weather that's happening because of climate. So we have to act on climate if we want to protect our farmers. And as regards food production, I'm not a fan of sheep, as you know, but actually all of this land will still be available for sheep farming according to the report. So we'll have a double income for these farmers. And as regards big business, these are 11 farmers will own the land and they will make an income unsubsidised for the next 60 years from having solar farms, and they will have a second income by raising sheep on that land. So it's not removing it from production completely, and so it's a win-win. And there's no pylons.
But
they're actually going to put the
you've
cables
argued that solar panels are good, that
Which
we
they
have
don't.
lots of golf courses, that sheep can be great. All those things may be true, but
Well,
isn't
they're
the
true.
point here, or isn't the argument here, whether or not these solar panels would be better elsewhere? I don't think anybody, and certainly the villagers, weren't arguing we don't need more solar power, that it's a good thing. The point is, there of course is going to be a conflict here, because anywhere that has a lot of sunshine is good for growing crops and good for solar panels.
Well, where there is agreement is that actually the protest group says quite rightly we should actually be putting huge amounts of solar on existing industrial warehousing and industrial sites. I spoke to the Solar Nation Network just before I came on the programme to get a briefing on this, and they said we could produce 50% of our current electricity production by just putting 80% of the current industrial sites. Now, the government, compared to the last government, has taken one step in that direction. They've required all new housing to have solar. So that's good. But what they haven't done is all new factories and warehousing don't have to have solar. And that's hopefully where we can agree that should be prioritised. But even with that, we will still need some utility-scale solar. Not covering the countryside, 0.6, 0.5% maximum is the plan. And that I would oppose anything more than that. And your point about premium farmland, I agree. I actually think Grade 1 and Grade 2 should be banned, and that's what the planning system says. This plan says 1% will be Grade 1, but where I think we may have common ground is 20% of it is Grade 2, and that's why I think the planning should say no to that, but yes to the 80%.
But what's the more basic argument? This is a stunning piece of British countryside, stunningly beautiful, which will be changed forever by these solar panels.
Well, actually, interestingly enough, they're actually planning 190 hectares of new rewilded land that will actually improve
that's even more food production land being taken out of.
No, but I've already said the land where the solar panels will not be taken out. It's the thing called agri-solar.
But it's what it looks like.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. It's stunningly beautiful.
Make your mind.
It's stunningly beautiful. And how can you get around that argument? It's stunningly beautiful. It will be changed forever by this solar farm.
There will be 180 hectares of new woodland, and the boundaries of the solar panels will have hedges and green fencing to obscure the view. I think 0.5% of the land is not a huge price to pay to protect future farming.
Well, we'll have to agree to disagree, but as ever, Donahue McCarthy makes his point very well.
We were in France a few weeks ago, and in a lot of the supermarket car parks, they had shelters at 45 degrees over the cars to keep your car cool while you shop, but covered with solar panels. What great use of
That's clever.
Nobody cares what the supermarket car park
No, exactly. We just need a bit more imaginative thinking. Oh, look, we've got rare agreement with Donahue McCarthy. Who'd have thought it?
We've solved the problem.
Exactly.
Brilliant.
Now, moving on, if you want some elusive holiday sun, here's the forecast for some of our top European destinations.
I forecast a perfect holiday in the sun.
Weather looking good then?
For sure, and no worries about our travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Across northwest Africa and western parts of Iberia, another heat wave is set to continue this week. Temperatures pushing into the low 40s, particularly across inland areas. And with those high temperatures comes plenty of sunshine, particularly across Spain, parts of Italy and also parts of Greece. And those UV levels are set to be high, so do take care if you're heading out on holiday. And that weather is set to continue as we head over the weekend and into next week. That's it from me. Bye-bye.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
You've read the headlines, you've heard what those in power have to say. How about now we actually get to the truth?
They would pay attention.
We go beyond the political theatre and tell you what's really going on behind the scenes. For a massive council tax hike, one of the biggest in the UK. Others follow their lines, but we go off script.
You sound like a broken record. You say that week after week.
Cutting through the narratives and giving you unique perspectives. That's Ben Leo tonight, Saturdays and Sundays from 9 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel. Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Okoye, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m.
Only on GB News.
Welcome back. The latest interest rate decision is due within the next hour, and it's expected that the Bank of England will be cutting interest rates from 4% down to 4%, down from 4.25%. Well, let's get the latest on this now with economics expert Justin Urquhart-Stewart. Justin, thank you so much for joining us. You're looking resplendent. Do you think reports of a interest rate cut are likely to be true?
Yeah, the market's priced in certainly a cut of a quarter and maybe another cut to come later in the year as well. This is good news because of the lower the cost of money. The naysayers would say, but what about inflation? Actually, inflation will be rising, but not by a dangerous amount. What we really need to focus on is actually getting the cost of money down so that investors can put more money into businesses and also give people the confidence to start setting up more businesses, something we're very good at doing. But you need that vital word, confidence. So it's not just an interest rate cut we need all the links together with that, government incentives, not government money. They can do it by way of guarantees from enterprise investment schemes on a regional basis to give entrepreneurs the kick to be able to sit there and say, I've now got enough confidence to say, yes, we've got money in the country. Yes, we've got consumers who are starting to spend a little bit more from a very low level. And so now is the time to start moving. And the other issue, of course, if the cost of mortgages are coming down, then maybe we start seeing some movement in the house market. And that's one of the best things you can do, because when you move house, the kitchen goes, the bathroom goes, or anything else that's lying around probably goes, and you go out and buy some more and you pay VAT on it. What's that? Income for the government. That's what we're going to try and do.
Will it affect, Justin, if the interest rate is cut, does that then reduce the amount of interest the government has to pay on the eye-watering money that the country owes, the 2 trillion or £2.5 trillion pounds? Will it have make a big difference there?
Yeah, it will make some impact on it. Some of the debt that we've got, as you say, eye-watering, is actually actually linked together to inflation. That was one of Gordon Brown's bright ideas. But remember now, our debt is now over, in terms of interest alone, over 100 billion a year. Go back 4 years ago, that was 50 billion a year. To put that into context, that's roughly was then the same as our defence budget. So there is one other side to it, of course. Remember, about 25% of government debt is actually owned by the government. through the Bank of England. So twice a year, the government actually gets a dividend, a coupon, on its own debt. You couldn't really make this up, could you? So there is a perverse way you actually look at this, that yes, the government will now be getting less income on its own debt. Does it make sense? Not really. What you need to do, though, is make sure more of that money is going into the economy and give people the confidence to spend it, invest it. And if we hear if it follows up what we heard earlier in the week, that you might get tax going on investments as well, because they get dragged into the tax system because of what's been happening with the hold-up of keeping people's tax rates down, the tax bands down, then that'll actually find people being taxed on their savings, which is, again, lunacy.
But Justin, I think it's becoming increasingly clear that so many of our economic problems in this country are down to burgeoning levels of debt. Government debt, yes, but household debt as well. And the main reason for that is interest rates were so low for so long that they encouraged people, including the government, to borrow far more than was sensible. It made money cheap. It encouraged people to take from tomorrow to fund today. And now we find ourselves in a right old mess. Why is it a good idea to continue down that path, again, of cutting interest rates?
Oh, absolutely right, because what we were living on were the emergency bank rates when we had the banking crisis back in 2008. They ran the rates right the way down, and so people were therefore borrowing money, taking out mortgages at those low levels. Rates start going up again, and the cost of their mortgage more than doubled sometimes, and there was a shortage of mortgages, so people having to pay more just to qualify for it. So actually, interest rate cuts at the moment will have a limited effect overall, but so it will encourage some investments on the edges, company investment, I mean. It needs to be put together with the rest of the packages, again, which has to cost the government a great deal. One of the areas I was looking at is quite interesting, is actually giving more incentive people to actually pay tax, because you then give them relief on the inheritance tax for the family later on. So therefore, you're getting some benefit for actually giving more money into the government at the times it actually needs it. But that needs imagination, and unfortunately, imagination and our government, words that don't really go together.
All right, Justin. Justin Urquhart-Stewart, one of our favourite economic experts. Very interesting backdrop, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not quite sure where he was. If we'd had more time, we'd have asked him. Now, still ahead.
Very energetic. Find out about the government's crackdown on the Wild West cosmetic industry and what it could mean for those seeking Botox and fillers. You're watching Britain's Newsroom on GB News, and you're about to find out all about the weather.
This is your chance to live mortgage or rent-free for an entire year. We'll give you a cash lump sum that will cover 12 of your monthly mortgage or rent payments, up to an incredible £20,000. Plus, we'll add £5,000 on top of that for you to treat yourself. You have to hurry though, as lines will close on the 29th of August. For a chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB15 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 29th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
You've read the headlines, you've heard what those in power have to say. How about now we actually get to the truth?
They would pay attention.
We go beyond the political theatre and tell you what's really going on behind the scenes. For a massive council tax hike, one of the biggest in the UK. Others follow their lines, but we go off script.
You sound like a broken record, just like week after week.
Cutting through the narratives and giving you unique perspectives. That's Ben Leo tonight, Saturdays and Sundays from 9 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/your say. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/your say, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
It's 11 o'clock on Thursday, the 7th of August, live across the UK, Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
And breaking news this morning, 265 small boat migrants have arrived in the UK since the government's return deal with France was signed, as the first illegal Channel migrants are also detained. Home Secretary Yvette Cooper is delighted.
No one should be making this journey in the first place, and that's why this is now starting the process to return people and to undermine this vile trade in people.
Well, those small boat migrants who've been detained are now in immigration detention ahead of being returned to France in the coming weeks. However, there is the possibility, of course, that they could appeal that process and just delay things further.
Possibility, I say that's a racing certainty. Cowboy Cosmetics, the government is cracking down on rogue beauty operations.
Only people with medical training should be able to put a needle near anyone's face with any kind of muscle relaxer, with any type of filler, wherever that be. You know, this for us is a massive day. It's a massive step in the right direction.
Winter, who joined us earlier. Now, breaking news.
Kremlin aide confirms that Russian leader Vladimir Putin will meet US President Donald Trump in person next week to discuss ending the war in Ukraine.
Solar Scourge, a picturesque Northamptonshire village, is outraged by the prospect of a major new solar panel farm on its doorstep. The local MP Sarah Ball is leading calls for the whole thing to be scrapped.
You are going to be taking agricultural fields out of use and replacing it with solar panels when there are warehouses, there are car parking spaces and other dead spaces you can use. That is the right place, not here.
And sick of Britain, 1 in 5 doctors are fed up with poor working conditions and they're chasing better pay abroad. So do we have a medical crisis, or should we just be treating our GPs better? Can you even get to see one?
Yeah. I'm amazed these doctors have the cheek. They're fed up with poor treatment. Hang on, we can't get to see a GP.
Well,
that's part of the problem.
But I think it's so dependent on your practice. Our practice is amazing. They've got brilliant booking systems. You can see one if you need to, lots of different options. But you hear horror stories about people who take 3 weeks to see a GP. So I think it's very, very localised where the problems are.
It's the 8 o'clock phone call lottery, isn't it? When
Well,
you
we
ring
don't
at
have
8
that at our
o'clock.
GP.
Well, you're lucky because some people, they ring at 8 o'clock and they're already number 73 in the queue.
Yes, which is an absolute pain. But ours has a messaging system, a bit like WhatsApp, where you can type in your request and then it gets passed on to whoever comes on duty and triages it, passes it to the nurse, the doctor, whoever it is, and always get a response. So I just think it depends on the system they use.
But all these doctors going abroad, after we've paid so much money to train them, I think that it's got to be in their contract. Once they've been trained, they have to stay for so many years or repay a lot of the money.
And I think they shouldn't have to pay their training fees if they do stay.
Exactly.
And doctors end up with so much debt at the end
do.
of 10 years of training. I don't think that's fair.
I know.
But yeah, on the other hand, they should be tied to the NHS. So.
They should. Now, we want to know what you think, of course. Send your views, post your comments by visiting
gbnews.com/your say. First of all, here are your news headlines with Tatiana Sanchez.
Andrew, Miriam, thank you very much. The top stories. Migrants who arrived in the UK after crossing the English Channel have been detained under the new one-in, one-out deal. The first detentions came as 150 illegal migrants arrived in Dover yesterday. On the first day, the pilot scheme came into force. The Home Office said they'll be held in immigration removal centres until they're returned to France. Home Secretary Yvette Cooper says it sends a message to every migrant thinking of making the illegal journey.
Well, the pilot has now begun, and the first migrants who arrived on small boat are now in detention. That is the first step to removing them to France, because no one should be making this journey in the first place, and that's why this is now starting the process to return people and to undermine this vile trade in people. We won't provide operational details at this point that criminal gangs can simply use and exploit. But no one should be in any doubt. Anyone who arrives from now on is eligible for immediate detention and return. And this pilot will now build, because we are determined that no one should be making this journey.
Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philp also spoke to GB News Breakfast.
I'm afraid it's got no chance of working, because we know that under this plan only 6% of people crossing will get returned to France, 94% will get to stay in the UK. And obviously, if 94% can stay in the UK, that's no deterrent at all. But I did think yesterday, I'll go and check it out for myself. So I was on the channel yesterday in a fishing boat. I went from Dover to Calais, had a look around the French coast, and actually the weather was there was a bit of a swell because of the aftermath of the storm. So the conditions weren't great, but within half an hour of arriving off the French coast, we found 2 boats stuffed full of illegal migrants, almost entirely young men, I would add, about 150 of them in total in 2 boats. So they clearly hadn't been deterred at all.
A Kremlin aide has confirmed that the US president will meet the Russian President Putin in the coming days, and that a venue will be decided and announced later today. The US president is seeking a 3-way peace deal with Russia and Ukraine to finally bring an end to the war.
Had some very good talks with President Putin today, and there's a very good chance that we could be ending the round, ending the end of that road. That road was long and continues to be long, but there's a good chance that there will be a meeting very soon.
The Trump team previously said the meeting between him and Putin would be conditional on the Russian president meeting his Ukrainian counterpart, Volodymyr Zelensky. It comes as Mr. Trump has had set a deadline of tomorrow for Russia to come to a ceasefire agreement with Ukraine or face further sanctions. Meanwhile, US President Donald Trump's sweeping new tariffs on more than 90 countries around the world have come into effect. Earlier, the president hit India with a 50% tariff, which will take effect on the 27th of August unless it stops buying Russian oil. Donald Trump has announced a 100% tariffs on computer chips made outside the United States. The move threatens to increase the cost of electronics made outside the US. No date has been set for when they might come into force. A previously announced hike of tariff rates on a range of global trading partners, ranging from 10% up to beyond 40%, comes into effect today. Borrowing costs are set to ease further, with Bank of England poised to cut the base interest rate for the 5th time in a year. The bank's Monetary Policy Committee is widely expected to reduce the base rate by 0.5 percentage points to 4% today. This would mark the 5th reduction since August last year, when rates started steadily coming down from a peak of 5.25%. A record number of 18-year-olds are likely to get into their first choice of university this year. The head of the Universities and Colleges Admission Service says even if they narrowly miss their grades. Dr. Jo Saxton said universities were keen to enrol UK graduates because there was a more uncertainty around international student numbers. She said they'd quite possibly accept students who did not meet the conditions of their offer, adding that domestic students offered universities stability for financial planning. The predictions come as thousands of students will open A-level, T-level, BTEC and other Level 3 results next week. And the government has announced a crackdown on unsafe cosmetic procedures. Under the plans, only qualified healthcare professionals registered with the Care Quality Commission will be allowed to give treatments such as Botox and lip filler. Under 18s will also be protected from potentially dangerous beauty trends on social media, with age restrictions on certain procedures. A government minister has described the industry as being plagued with a wild west of dodgy practitioners. Those are the latest headlines for now. More in half an hour.
My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
And here's a snapshot of today's markets. The pound will buy you $1.3370 and €1.1445. The price of gold is £2,525 and 40 pence per ounce. And the FTSE 100 is at 9,139 points.
My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
Welcome back. It's 9 minutes past 11. You're watching Britain's Newsroom. We are live across the United Kingdom on GB News with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
Well, this is a big, big moment because the Kremlin has confirmed that the Russian leader Putin will meet Donald Trump in person next week.
Yes, a venue has apparently been agreed and we're waiting for confirmation of where that will be. But what could it mean for the future of the conflict that has ravaged Ukraine for the past 3.5 years?
Let's talk to the chairman of Republicans Overseas UK, Greg Swenson, and the Ukrainian MP, Kira Rudik. Kira, if we could speak to you first, this must be such an important moment for you because there is at least the prospect now of some form of cessation in hostilities. Although some suggestion it could be just restricted to the end of the aerial bombardment of Ukraine.
Hello, Andrew. Hello, Miriam. Thank you so much for having me. We here on the ground are very cautious to express any hope because last time President Trump had a call with Putin, there was the most massive and drastic attack on Kyiv. So this night we spent in the bomb shelters because we didn't know what to expect. As of right now, there has not been any fact supporting the illusion that Putin wants peace. And though we believe that President Trump is sincerely trying to help Ukraine and to put the end to the war, we are very afraid that Putin will fool him, as he is obviously trying to do. He is dragging the negotiations and trying to win some time that he's using to advance at the battlefield and again continuing attacking our cities. The attacks did not stop.
Greg Swenson, do you agree with that? Do you think that potentially Donald Trump could be making things worse here?
I'm not sure he's making them worse, but I think Kira is absolutely right that you can't trust Vladimir Putin. And I think, it's not just trust but verify. It's don't trust and definitely verify. So, the president's doing his best to try to break this logjam. But I think the real wild card, as Kira pointed out, is Putin. And he's demonstrated that in the past, that he uses anything to make time for rearming or repositioning, and it's really sad to see. So look, I hope it's different this time around. The president is going to try to use some sort of pressure as well as diplomacy. He will put, if this thing doesn't work out, if Vladimir Putin pulls his typical tricks, I think the president will have a full barrage of sanctions on Russia, on Putin. And the other thing I should point out is one of the wild cards here is I'm sure I'll butcher his name, but it's Kirill Dmitriev, who is very pro-Western, or at least pro-U.S., and is working with Steve Witkoff and has met him several times. So, hopefully he'll have some influence on Putin that will be beneficial to ending this thing.
Kira, there is some speculation that your own President Zelensky might even be involved in some way in those talks.
If that would bring the peace closer, of course, this is what we would support. And but I would remind everyone that previous time when President Trump pressured Putin into having a meeting in Istanbul, President Zelensky appeared and Putin sent some delegation, and so the meeting didn't happen. So again, right now, this is sort of round two. We have no questions about President Trump's intentions. We understand that he wants killing to stop. But again, you cannot trust Putin, you cannot trust Russia, and we have not seen anything that we can take and work with it for the last 3.5 years. So we support all the attempts to bring peace, but we also need to understand that it may not work the way everybody hopes that it would.
I just asked you, Kira, about how is morale in Kiev, in some of your major cities, because of the bombardment, particularly from the skies?
So, of course, it's exhausting and it's very hard on people because when you're going to bed at night, you don't know if you're going to wake up in the morning. The issue is that even with all the sanctions that have been imposed on Russia, they are able to manufacture and purchase weapons, drones, and supplies. So over the years, they have actually increased the amounts and capacity of the drones. Last attacks were including more than 1,000 drones at the same time. So it was feeling like Armageddon. It was really, really dramatic and very hard on people. However, we are not planning to capitulate. We didn't do it in 2022, and we have no plans right now. Ukraine continues fighting, and we also support all the attempts to bring peace.
Greg, Kira's mentioned the sanctions there, and at the beginning of this conflict, the Europeans congratulated themselves really on the level of sanctions that they'd brought against Russia. But as Kira has pointed out, they had very limited effect. They pushed Russia into the arms of China. Increased oil prices have actually added to Russian wealth. What additional sanctions could the US bring that would have any impact if Putin still doesn't fall into line?
Yeah, it's a great point, Miriam. And the Europeans bought $22 billion of Russian oil and gas. And that was last year. That was in 24. That wasn't prior to the invasion. So, you know, obviously the sanctions were weak. The sanctions put on by President Biden were ineffective as well. So I think the president will have to do something that's a lot more serious and actually enforce them. So in the first term, President Trump had sanctions on Iran, for example, that really debilitated the regime and cut their capability of funding the proxies, of funding Hamas and Hezbollah and the Houthis. And so he'll put the same kind of sanctions on Putin, on Russia, if necessary. You know, he doesn't want to do that, but he will. And so, and remember, he sanctioned Nord Stream 2 right out of the gates in 2017 when he took office. Of course, President Biden took off the sanctions when he took office in 2021. So, you know, there has been some inconsistency, but I think we can count on President Trump to, you know, actually do what he says he's going to do.
Kira Rudik, just finally to you, can the Ukrainians ever trust anything that comes out of Vladimir Putin's mouth?
No, we cannot. No. And I don't think anyone can. And while we are talking, Andrew, the air raid siren is on in Kiev, which means that there is another attack coming. So even with the agreement by President Trump and Putin that there will be a meeting, Russia doesn't stop attacking us. And here are the facts.
Well, we wish you all the best, Kira. You're living through a living nightmare there, and let's hope something comes out of these talks. That's Kira Rudik, the Ukrainian MP, and Greg Swenson, who's the chairman of Republicans Overseas UK. I think Trump needs this. He needs to pull something off here.
And you just can't imagine having lived like that for 3 years.
Yeah, and then we're having a conversation and the air raid siren goes off mid-morning when most people are thinking perhaps have putting the kettle on.
Yeah,
and they've got and
all those men dead and maimed and
tens and tens of thousands. Yeah. And of course, Putin doesn't care how many hundreds of thousands of young Russian men die.
No, that's it. And I think that Trump made a mistake of thinking that this was a logical war. He just wanted to expand his territory a bit. Yeah. But I think it's much more ideological.
It is. He wants to recreate the old Soviet Union. And remember, he is an old KGB assassin, isn't he? Now, the Home Office says the first detentions of illegal Channel migrants have now taken place. Guess what, though? They won't tell us how many. Funny that. It follows the deal reached between the UK and France, which came into force 2 days ago.
But 265 small boat migrants have arrived in the UK since the government's return deal with France was signed. It's not quite smashing the gangs, well, not yet anyway. Well, let's cross over to Dover, where our Home and Security editor, Mark White, joins us live. Mark, are the boats continuing to cross?
They are indeed. The Border Force vessel Ranger arrived here into Dover Harbour about 45 minutes or so ago with 54 migrants on board, and that followed 66 migrants on board another Border Force vessel that came in during the early hours of the morning under the cover of darkness. So 110 have arrived so far today, added to the 155 yesterday. We're at 265, and as we speak, the Border Force vessel Typhoon is in the channel, having picked up another migrant boatload and on its way back to Dover, be here in the next half hour, we believe. And so we'll be well over 300. There's another migrant boat out there as well. So we could well be 350, even pushing 400 by the end of today. So you can see the limited numbers that are going to be returned back to France are, you know, really surpassed multiple times by those that are arriving. And that's just, you know, in the 24-hour period from yesterday morning to this morning. Over the course of a week, it can be into the thousands that have arrived.
And keep talking. Thanks, Mark. That's Mark White. And, of course, we'll keep you up to date on that story because that's going to be the story of the week. And I'm afraid I think the government have made it worse with their botched deal because it's just going to draw attention to the fact they haven't got a solution.
We'll be able to see whether or not it's made any difference to number of boats setting. And it'll be really interesting to see what the gangs are saying to each other because we know they communicate on social media, on TikTok.
Yeah.
Has there been any traffic on the new deal?
Yeah. Do you think they're quaking in their boots in Turkey where a lot of these gangs are organised? I suspect not.
Probably not.
Now, here's your chance to live mortgage or rent-free for a year. Get a bonus £5,000 in your bank in the latest Great British Giveaway.
And guess what? If you don't have a mortgage or rent to pay, lucky you, but you can still enter and win £15,000. Here are all the details you need.
This is your chance to live mortgage or rent-free for an entire year in the latest Great British Giveaway. That's right, we'll give you a cash lump sum that will cover 12 of your monthly mortgage or rent payments, up to an incredible £20,000. Plus, we'll add £5,000 on top of that for you to treat yourself. And if you don't have a mortgage or rent to pay, lucky you, we'll give you £15,000 in cash instead. You have to hurry though, as lines will close on the 29th of August. For a chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB15 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 29th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Up next.
£22 billion black hole.
The £22 billion black hole of £22 billion.
Well, that black hole still hasn't been filled, and the Prime Minister refuses to rule out a tax raid on working people to plug that £51 billion shortfall. Watching Britain's Newsroom.
Which will be another major broken promise.
Well, if you keep digging, a hole gets bigger, in my experience.
Absolutely right. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
At GB News, we are proud to stand for you, for the Britain you love, for the communities you live in, That's what makes us the fearless champions of Britain. Its voices and its values. Because we, at GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. 25 minutes past 11. You're watching Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Miriam, and we have our panel back. Maybe less fiery than...
No, I don't.
I don't bank on it, no.
Round two, between
yeah.
Malone and Jonathan Liss. Now, what are you talking about, guys?
I think we wanted to talk about the fact that MasterChef aired
Yes, it's on a lot of front pages, isn't it?
To massive criticism.
Wallace and Turode, I thought they'd been thrown off the show.
Well, they had. Both of them have been fired, but, of course, the BBC already had this series in the can. But what it is in fact, the reviewer in your paper today made it clear, as in a lot of other papers, you know, the BBC made a big deal about how they sympathise with all the women that Wallace is alleged to have abused and sexually harassed and all the rest of it. And they said it was terrible, awful, so awful they fired him for it. Or Banjay fired him, technically, the company that made the programme. But now they're showing the show. So how much do they actually care about the distress of these women? That they've now got this guy, the abuser, on screen, which I find...
Alleged abuser.
Alleged abuser. Well, no, he's been found guilty of 45 of the allegations.
It's true.
So, yeah, and so this is all about money. They've spent the money. They've spent a lot of money on the series.
And they want the ratings.
But what they're saying is that they've put it out so the contestants won't be disappointed. Well, that's Tosh as well, because at least one of them, two of them, have said...
But isn't that a fair point, Carol? I mean, airing it does not... You can't go back on what he's done. You can't mend that.
But why would you have him in people's faces when he's all...
It's about the show, surely. You're making it all about...
No one's being forced to watch it.
Look,
I think that, as with all these things, there is a balance. If Wallace had been accused of a very serious offence, for example, and was on trial or whatever, something like that, then I completely agree that it would be inappropriate.
He had not charged, but he has been accused of very serious...
Well, he hasn't been charged with any offence.
He's been accused of, and the investigation found
I think that there is
done this.
Okay, look, I think that there, like I say, there are degrees of offence, and clearly what he did was enough for him to be sacked. It's not, as things go, enough for him to be charged with any crime. I think that is the line the BBC decided to take, that this can still be entertaining. People are watching this for the food, and people can choose not to watch it, and the BBC will find out very soon if they've made the right decision.
Can I say on John Turode, was he fired because of alleged racism?
John Turode is alleged to have said the N-word 8 years ago at a party in a conversation with a friend. Turode can't remember saying it. The person at the time...
Did he lose his job over that?
Yes, the person who he said it to was not offended. Someone who overheard him say it waited 8 years to report him for it. Weird, that, isn't it?
That's so peculiar.
But I don't put Turode in the same class as Wallace at all. But I think it's very odd, because what they've done is they've edited a lot of the fun out of the show.
Right.
So it's just like them.
So the banter's gone.
The banter's completely gone.
So it's probably a rather bland, boring programme anyway.
Well, the people can choose not to watch it, can't they? I mean, look, I think in the BBC's defence, you know, they have obviously spent a lot of money on this show. I mean, money, it does count something. It is entertaining for people. People like to watch this show. They've tried to have this sort of very BBC-type balance where they've broadcast it, but they've removed anything that could possibly make someone amused or entertained. So, you know, so we'll see if people still want to watch it.
Do you not get said this is an insult to all the women he's ever insulted, abused and harassed. Do you not get that?
Oh, I can't believe that you're going to the woke of me for this. This is the first time it's ever happened on GB News.
It's a slap in the face to
I can understand that if you were gravely offended by something that Wallace did, then you might object to him being on air. I completely understand that. What I'm saying is that in the BBC's defence, they clearly have to put that objection against the other considerations they have when broadcasting any programme. If he had been charged with an offence, I think that, right, well, that's the line that I personally would draw.
It's cancel culture, isn't it, to do anything?
I've never heard you applaud cancel culture.
No, it's not cancel culture. He has been accused, and those allegations have been verified by an independent inquiry, which said he dropped his pants in front of women, he sexually harassed them. I'm sorry.
And that's why it's right that he's not. That's why it's right that he was sacked. It's right that he was sacked.
Yes, but if the BBC takes the high horse and says this is worth sacking someone over, well, then surely it's worth dumping.
OK, Carol, so let me ask you this question then. Should the BBC refuse to show any repeats of MasterChef for the rest of till the end of time because Wallace is on them? Because what you're always saying is that the people basically disappeared and they erased. I just don't think that's right. I think that people can lose their jobs, but they don't sort of cease. The history doesn't cease.
I think the hypocrisy knows no bounds, and I think it's just another example of how the BBC...
Right, yes, let's move on.
What about this story about HMRC staff who've been attending seminars on a working day on a topic such as the guilt of being British? Do you think this is appropriate?
I wonder what I think about this one. Right, so...
Well, I expect you to agree with it.
I think this is... I don't feel guilty about being British. I am British. I don't feel guilty about it. I can't help it.
Guilty from working
I'm proud to be British. I know that people will be amazed to hear that.
But actually,
say that. I love Britain for all its faults. I'm just more ready to acknowledge what those faults are than some other people on this panel, that's all. Look, there are people who come from a South Asian background. I think this is about South Asian British people, this seminar.
No, it's not. It's for everyone.
Well, I think that it was. I think it was the clip, the bit I read. It was sort of. I think the South Asians were mentioned, and that people can have very mixed feelings about their identity. That if they come from a place in the world where Britain was an aggressor, a coloniser, they can have very mixed feelings about what.
Hang on, Jonathan.
The point here is surely what on earth is a taxpayer-funded organisation doing, funding a seminar in work time? Yes. When these civil servants should be doing their job. If they're so concerned about feeling guilty over being British, do it in your lunch break. Do it on your weekend. Why are they doing it in work time, Jonathan?
Well, I mean, could this not count as... I mean, was this... I don't know if this counted as a break or not.
No, it didn't.
But look, I think basically... within the organisation, you do have sort of institutional responsibilities. You do have sort of emphasis on
to answer
diversity
the phone is an
and acknowledging...
They never answer the phone at HMRC.
If you're a government
we know
agency,
why.
You might take some responsibility to look at what your government
so if you have an organisation which is functioning properly, which HMRC does not, it is a very dysfunctional department, you might have time for these kind of seminars. It's interesting. It was an astonishing figure today. The tax gap, and that's the amount that should be paid to HMRC and for some reason hasn't been collected, amounts to 46.8 billion a year. Exactly the amount of money Rachel Reeves needs to fill her black hole.
Yeah.
So why are they faffing around with seminars about... this is something that they're going to be talking about, concentrating on the emotional weight of colonial history and inherited trauma.
What a load of...
Do our tax returns.
Inherited trauma is something that more sort of people are talking about it. The epigenetics of it's not scientific. It's a scientific study.
With tax returns.
The tax man. That's
exactly.
Well, I find taxes quite traumatic. I don't know about
you. I think people who can't get through to HMRC will be furious.
And that's the point. There is huge criticism of their system.
They never
calls are being missed. People are being cut off. My own husband waited for 3 hours to get through to HMRC. Was cut off within about 3 minutes. So, he was like wanting to bang his head off the wall. So do your job, then have your...
He's a Muslim. Perhaps he'll feel OK, though, Carol, because perhaps they were in that seminar instead of answering his phone call. Perhaps he'll be encouraged by that.
Yeah, well, I don't think he was encouraged by that at all. I think he was quite cross. But I just think get on with the job of doing our tax. This is just... And we're paying for that.
Yeah, we are.
We're paying for this course. It's outrageous.
PC Tosh, do it in your own time, Jonathan. Thank you.
Well, I probably wouldn't have joined the seminar myself because I don't feel guilty about being British. Well, I just think Britain should feel guilty of some of the things it's done, that's all.
Well, we should read this writer reply from HMRC.
This would be interesting.
Said, events by staff networks should not be taken as reflecting the views of HMRC An event like this would only be attended by around 0.1% of staff, which would have no impact on our ability to staff our helplines. We have robust processes in place to ensure our phone lines are well resourced throughout the day.
Well, why don't you answer them then?
Yeah.
Thank you very much, HMRC. Thank you, panel. We're going to get our...
You're so welcome.
We're going to get our 60-second update with Tatiana Sanchez.
Andrew, thank you. The headlines at 11:30. The government has detained the first illegal Channel migrants under the deal with France. The Home Office has confirmed that the first detentions have taken place under the UK-France pilot. The Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, has been speaking this morning.
Is the first step to removing them to France, because no one should be making this journey in the first place, and that's why this is now starting the process to return people and to undermine this vile trade in people.
Aid has confirmed the US president will meet the Russian President Putin in the coming days and that a venue will be decided and announced later today. The US president is seeking a three-way peace deal with Russia and Ukraine to finally bring an end to the war. A record number of 18-year-olds are likely to get into their first choice of university this year. The head of the Universities and Colleges Admissions Service says, even if they narrowly miss their grades. And the government has announced a crackdown on unsafe cosmetic procedures. Under the plans, only qualified healthcare professionals registered with the Care Quality Commission will be allowed to give treatments such as Botox and lip filler. And those are the latest GB News headlines. For now, more news at the top of the hour.
Tune into GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Afternoon, good afternoon, Britain. Tom and Emily are here. What are you up to, you guys?
Oh, we've got a big, busy show, but we should say that at 12 o'clock we are expecting a new interest rate decision from the Bank of England, expecting perhaps a cut. So the government will be crowing about this, but I think it's worth remembering that we were expecting to be one or two cuts ahead of where we are already, and there have been some delays. So this is sort of catch-up cut, if it does happen. If it doesn't happen, well, something's gone very wrong.
And of course, if you're a saver who doesn't have a mortgage or a bank loan, higher interest rates rather helpful for you.
Yes, although if you're a saver, should you really be having all of your money in a savings account? Probably not.
But lots of people do.
Lots of people do, but it's sensible, obviously, to diversify, and high interest rates mean that stock returns are going to be worse.
Advisor.
I mean, it's a fair point, Nick. People say, oh, well, this will boost investment. But what they mean is this will boost debt. And debt's the massive problem, the big counterweight hanging over the economy at the moment.
People put too much on their credit card, don't they?
Although we are massively indebted as a country because houses are so expensive. So there is a lot more private debt, mainly in people's mortgages.
The problem with the housing market is you cut the interest rate, mortgages become affordable, therefore people borrow more and the house prices stay the same. That's what we've seen in the past.
We've also got a big royal exclusive coming your way to bring you with Cameron Walker, our royal correspondent, so that should be quite juicy. We won't reveal too much yet, but it will relate to Prince Harry. It might relate to Prince Harry. It could be, it could be. Also, there's a big story over in Spain, which has come to our country as well, leading quite a lot of the newspapers. Now, a Spanish town has decided to ban all Muslim festivals from taking place in public areas, and I think it speaks to a sort of unease, doesn't it, in our communities across Europe with the rise of Islam and Muslim festivals being held outdoors. But is this authoritarianism in Spain? We'll be debating that.
Absolutely, and it's interesting, particularly in Spain, given that it was for a long time a Muslim country before the caliphate retreated. So there's sort of interesting tensions there in terms of what is history, tradition, what is sort of Spain about as a country.
And Spain has many open-air Christian ceremonies and festivals too, so that's going to cause quite a big problem.
I think it has already, yes. It's the Conservative and the far-right parties that have linked up to push this through in this particular area. But, of course, there's been a huge amount of pushback. So we'll get stuck into that
Absolutely,
as well.
and it comes to the British question as well. We now know the leader of His Majesty's most loyal opposition does not have a religious faith herself. We'll be debating the decline in religious faith in this country as well, and whether that matters in politics.
Really interesting, really interesting.
Well,
that's Tom and Emily.
Up next at midday, but coming up next on Britain's Newsroom, Brazilian butt lifts, Botox and filler. I'm not still... Yes, well, I won't be reading that out. But,
yes, they do write some things in this autocue thinking we're going to fall.
None of us on this panel feel the need.
That's just a weekend with Tom Harwood, isn't it?
I do.
Not yet. I can actually still move my eyebrows. That's the
very
that's the
good.
key thing.
And I don't think any of us are going to have a Brazilian butt lift. Why do they call them Brazilian ones? Did they originate in Brazil?
I don't want to know.
Brazilians have big bottoms, Andrew.
Right, OK.
Apparently.
Right. Why do people want bigger bottoms? I don't understand that either, but then call me old-fashioned.
It's always your say.
Yeah, we're going to fill you in shortly, if you pardon the pun. Fillers, go, dear, who did write this stuff? Get rid of them. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. It's been a rather drizzly start for some of us this morning, brightening up nicely this afternoon, leaving a day of sunny spells and showers. But you're really going to notice those winds strengthen across northern areas this evening. That's all thanks to this area of low pressure, dragging in some cloud and some outbreaks of rain. And notice a real squeeze on the isobars there, particularly across western Scotland. So a breezy day here, and winds will strengthen more and more as the day goes on. And then we'll see plenty of blustery showers moving eastwards across northern areas, in particular Scotland, Northern Ireland and northern and central parts of England. We'll see that cloud linger through much of the day across parts of the south. Still some drizzly outbreaks, particularly across Devon and Cornwall, but feeling warm and any brighter spells, highs reaching around 23 to 24 degrees Celsius. So a blustery end to the day across Scotland in particular. Western exposed coast, for example, there is a chance we'll start to see some gales later in the night. Still plenty of blustery showers moving through too. Still the chance of the odd shower, particularly around coastal areas of Northern Ireland and northern parts of England. Still, once again, could see 1 or 2 showers by the time we reach later into this afternoon. Any drizzle will eventually clear away across the south through into the evening, still leaving a remnants of cloud for a time before this clears away as we head towards dawn. And those showers are still set to continue, particularly across Scotland. And as I say, a risk of gales by the time we reach the early hours of the morning. So do take care if you're travelling during the early hours of Friday. But elsewhere, it should be mostly dry, and it's going to be particularly mild across the south. Some towns and cities not dropping past 15, maybe even 16 degrees Celsius. So a mild start, and it leads us into a warm day across much of England and Wales. Plenty of bright spells and even some sunshine by the time we reach the afternoon. But a very different story across Scotland. Strong winds continuing here and also outbreaks of rain. This at times could turn quite heavy and blustery. But where you see the sunshine, once again, a little warmer than this afternoon. Highs reaching 25 degrees Celsius.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Welcome back. It's nearly 11:45 and the government has announced a crackdown on unsafe cosmetic procedures as they describe the industry as being plagued with a wild west of dodgy practitioners.
Under the plans, only qualified healthcare professionals registered with the Care Quality Commission will be allowed to give treatments such as Botox and lip filler. We're going to talk now to plastic surgeon at the Caridis Clinic, Alex Caridis. Alex, your industry is, well, more and more people are turning to plastic surgery and to Botox and fillers. How badly scarred are you by the cowboys?
Well, I mean, the thing is, at the end of the day, you know, as you said yourself, more and more people are turning to cosmetic treatments and procedures. The problem is, of course, is that when that does happen, you get more and more people entering this industry to try to sort of take advantage of it as best they can. And although, obviously, I hear what the government is suggesting, I mean, there have been initiatives in the past have fallen too short or a little too late to really address fundamentally the issue. And so, forgive me if I'm a little bit cynical with this, but obviously I'd like to see what the detail is going to be at the end of the day.
In your experience, Alex, which are the procedures that are most likely to go wrong, that are most often conducted by cowboys?
Well, you see, the thing is this. I mean, there are non-surgical and surgical procedures. Obviously, the surgical procedures, we all know, involves usually a scalpel, and they require a hospital or some sort of inpatient stay or as a day case. And of course, you have the non-surgical treatments, which involve injections largely, or possibly maybe just lasers and other sort of devices. The problem is, just because something is non-surgical does not mean it's non-medical, and it still requires medical expertise. And that's where the problem lies. Unfortunately, today, any person can pick up a needle and a syringe and start, treating people, This is the problem. At the same time, we also have non-sort of registered surgeons doing surgical procedures. And so I fear that these measures are really not going to be adequate enough, because it's pretty much sort of trying to lock the stable door after the whole horse is bolted, and I really can't see them reining it in, to be frankly honest with you.
Well, what should they do then, Alex? If you were talking to the minister responsible, what should they have done to really clean up this industry?
Yeah, they should have done this years ago, before people were allowed to start doing all these things. And now the problem is, you can understand how people say, well, listen, I've been doing this for X number of years. Okay, I may not have qualification, but I have experience. Well, that's not good enough. But the problem is, on the other hand, it's hard to then say, no, you can't suddenly do this after you've been doing it for 10 years. You understand where the difficulty lies here. And that's where I think, from a logistics perspective, they're going to have difficulty to actually fundamentally control this, if you want to call it industry, this sector.
Can I ask you, I'm intrigued by this whole area of plastic surgery, Alex. I assume, maybe I'm wrong, call me old-fashioned, it's mainly women who want plastic surgery, or are more men turning to it now?
Well, there's
really?
an increased number of men. Personally, from my perspective, I probably see maybe about 30% men. 7% women. So yeah, so it's definitely on the increase for men. It has been for a number of years now.
And it's because they want to look younger, or because they want to alter their features, or is that a combination of both?
Yeah, I mean, it's a combination of both. Sometimes, they have things that they feel that they can't change through their own natural means, whereby that diet, exercise, or whatever, or they want to rejuvenate something that they feel has aged particularly badly. At the end of the day, all these features and things can affect someone's psyche, their self-esteem quite a lot. And it's very easy for somebody to poo-poo and say, well, hang on a second, why is that bothering you? Well, it may not bother you, but to that person, it's an issue, and that affects, what they do on a daily basis as well. So, it's very complex.
Certainly is.
Alex Karidis from the Alex Karidis Clinic, thank you for joining us this morning.
So now, moving on, if you're in search of some holiday sun, here's the forecast.
Looking happy.
Well, the forecast looks good.
So you've sorted the travel insurance then?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Across northwest Africa and western parts of Iberia, another heat wave is set to continue this week. Temperatures pushing into the low 40s, particularly across inland areas. And with those high temperatures comes plenty of sunshine, particularly across Spain, parts of Italy and also parts of Greece. And those UV levels are set to be high, so do take care if you're heading out on holiday. And that weather is set to continue as we head over the weekend and into next week. That's it from me. Bye-bye.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Beth.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie's here.
I'm Michelle Duke, Britain's News Channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection, tune in to GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
You've read the headlines, you've heard what those in power have to say. How about now we actually get to the truth?
They would pay attention.
We go beyond the political theatre and tell you what's really going on behind the scenes. For a massive council tax hike, one of the biggest in the UK. Others follow their lines, but we go off script.
You sound like a broken record, you say that week after week.
Cutting through the narratives and giving you unique perspectives. That's Ben Leo tonight, Saturdays and Sundays from 9 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
No,
Because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, you didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now, that Royal Row rumbles on as it's revealed Centre Barley, the charity, may take further action against Prince Harry, who founded the charity, in their ongoing dispute over allegations of bullying and misogyny. Let's get the latest on the royal correspondent, Cameron Walker. Cameron, I thought the Charity Commission said, stop falling out in public. Here we are, day 3, they're still falling out in public.
Yes, I was literally sat here, wasn't I, saying that the Charity Commission had criticised Prince Harry, the chair, and the charity for allowing this whole row to, as you say, play out in public. And this morning, still, I'm getting briefings and counter-briefings trying to blame each side. It appears to be a bit of a clash of two egos here. I don't think either side is planning to back down. Either side refuse to admit that there's any wrongdoing on either of their parts. So, of course, the Charity Commission found that there was no evidence of widespread bullying and harassment and misogyny at Centre Barley, the charity that Prince Harry co-founded. The chair of the charity accused Prince Harry of trying to cover up bullying and harassment, something that Prince Harry has always denied. Prince Harry's spokesperson then came out yesterday and said, well, this clears Prince Harry of all wrongdoing. And it appears sources close to Centre Barley have taken umbrage with that and saying that that's entirely wrong. Prince Harry still has blame against him. But a source has told me, close to the former Board of Trustees, who resigned, of course, when all this row erupted, and they say quite strong words. It's remarkable. Just yesterday, Miss Chandauka, who's the chair of Centre Barley, was applauding the Charity Commission's findings. Yet today, after a flurry of unflattering headlines, she's back on the warpath. Issuing yet another media statement only reinforces the Commission's criticism about using the press to air internal disputes, as we've just been saying, rehashing unsubstantiated allegations of bullying, misogyny and more, which the Commission found no evidence of, and dressing them up as veiled threats isn't just provocative, it's pitiful. If Ms Chandauka has genuine concerns, she should spell them out plainly, or better yet, redirect her energy towards something truly worthwhile, like raising money for the children Centre Barley exists to support.
How does that do anything to help this charity, which is to help kids who've got HIV and AIDS in Africa?
Exactly, and the Charity Commission, very similar wording actually, saying we now urge everybody involved to put their differences behind them and allow the charity to focus on its work. And that's the crux of the issue, isn't it?
Yeah.
Why are we still talking about this?
Yeah.
Because they're still arguing in public. Who's losing out here? The children in Southern Africa with HIV, AIDS and mental health problems. How is this going to help the standing of the charity? I suspect it's not going to do great for the donations. How much money, realistically, is a charity going to have after this such public row? Because it's damaged the reputation of a charity, as the Charity Commission said yesterday. And where does it go from here? No longer has any royal patrons. Prince Harry says he's moving on and going to be doing something else in that part of the world. But for St Barley, I honestly, it's going to be very difficult for them to recover from this scandal.
Absolutely. Cameron Walker, thank you for that. More about that later, I suspect, in the programme. Now, that's it from Britain's Newsroom. From me and Miriam. I was just about to call you... Beverly Turner? Who is Beverly Turner? Up next, good afternoon, Britt, Tom and Emily.
And we will be revealing exactly where Emily is in just a few moments' time. Be rest assured she is safe and sound, and we'll be back in a moment in the show. But also, of course, interest rate decision due in just a moment's time. We'll tell you what it is. All to come.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. There will be some showers, also some spells of rain today, but many will see plenty of brighter interludes. Feeling a little cooler in the west though, particularly as we start to see the breeze pick up through the course of the day. And quite a damp start to the day across Wales, parts of Devon and Cornwall.